They once sat at the same table. They smiled for the same cameras. They promised the same peace. But today, their armies tear their country apart. This is the story of two men, two generals, two visions of power, and one broken nation, Sudan. Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo, known to the world as Hemedti. Both born of Sudan, both rose from dust and desperation. Both now hold millions of lives in their hands. Once they were allies, standing shoulder to shoulder after toppling Omar al-Bashir, Sudan's longtime dictator in 2019. People filled the streets shouting for freedom. For a moment, hope returned to Khartoum. But hope doesn't last long in the fire of ambition. Al-Burhan, the army man, disciplined, cold, from a traditional military background, educated in the army system, loyal to the institution. Hemedti, the outsider, from Darfur's harsh deserts, a camel trader who rose through the ranks not by education, but by survival. He commanded the Janjaweed, a militia accused of atrocities during the Darfur War, a conflict that the United Nations said left more than 300,000 people dead. Two men, two very different paths, but one shared addiction: power. In the early days after al-Bashir's fall, the world watched with cautious optimism. A transitional council was formed, civilians and soldiers together. It looked like democracy might finally take root. But beneath the promises, the knives were already being sharpened. According to a BBC report, tension began when control over Sudan's security forces became unclear. Who would command the rapid support forces, Hemedti's men? Would they merge into the regular army or remain under his personal control? Burhan said integration must happen, under the army. Hemedti refused. He saw it as surrender. That disagreement became a spark that would ignite a national inferno. By April 2023, the fragile partnership collapsed. Khartoum, once a proud capital, turned into a battlefield. Gunfire echoed through neighborhoods where children once played. Hospitals became war zones. People fled their homes, not knowing if they'd ever return. Reuters described the scenes as a capital divided by fear, with streets littered by the debris of war and the silence of abandoned markets. Each man blamed the other. Burhan called Hemedti a rebel. Hemedti called Burhan a traitor. And Sudan, caught between their egos, burned. Let's look closer. Al-Burhan, the head of the Sudanese armed forces, wants a unified military under his command, a vision of control, hierarchy, and order. He presents himself as a guardian of the state, but his critics say he is another general clinging to power, fearing that real democracy might end his rule. Hemedti, meanwhile, paints himself as a protector of the people, a man of the poor, the forgotten tribes of the West. He speaks of freedom, justice, and reform. But behind his words stand the ghosts of Darfur and accusations of war crimes that never faded away. Both men tell the world they fight for Sudan, but in truth, they fight for survival. Because in Sudan's politics, power is life, and losing it can mean death. Foreign powers watch closely. The United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Russia, each with its own interests, gold, trade routes, influence. Sudan's land is rich in resources, its people rich in spirit. And yet, the people are always the ones who pay the price. More than 7 million have been displaced, according to the United Nations. Families walking for days without food, mothers carrying children under burning skies, entire towns erased. And all because two men could not share the same chair. In the shadows of this chaos, warlords grow stronger. Smugglers, mercenaries, and profiteers feed on the nation's suffering. Hospitals collapse, schools turn into shelters, dreams disappear. But still, amid the smoke, courage survives. Ordinary Sudanese people help one another. Doctors risk their lives to treat the wounded. Volunteers bring food, water, and hope to the forgotten. These are the real heroes of Sudan. Not the generals, not the politicians, but the people who still believe in tomorrow. Imagine you wake up to the sound of fighter jets. You grab your child and run through empty streets. You see your home, your whole life burning behind you. That's the story of millions today. And still the world moves on. News fades, headlines change. But for the people of Sudan, the nightmare continues. So who are the men behind the war? They are not monsters, but they are not saviors either. They are men trapped in the illusion of power, each believing he alone can save the nation, each blind to the pain his hands have created. Al-Burhan, Hemedti, names written in the dust of war. Their rivalry has destroyed what generations built, and unless they lay down their pride, Sudan's wounds may never heal. Yet history teaches us something. No empire lasts forever. No warlord remains unchallenged. And no weapon is stronger than the will of a people who refuse to be broken. The people of Sudan still sing, still pray, still hope. They wait for a dawn that feels far away, but it will come, because every night, no matter how long, ends with the light. This is Behind War Lines, a voice for those trapped between fire and silence. If this story touched you, don't just watch, but remember. Share their pain, share their hope, and subscribe, not for the channel, but for the stories that must not be forgotten. Because when we remember, humanity stands together. And maybe, one day, Sudan will stand too.